Namo Buddhaya. Let's begin our Mindfulness in Buddha's Way Sutta study session. Before we start, we will pay our homage to the Supreme Buddha. Say with me. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavatu arahatu Samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahatu Samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahatu Samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Friends, welcome to our Mindfulness in Buddha's Way Sutta study session. Today we will explore about the 5 hindrances. So I selected the next sutta among the suttas where Buddha teach about establishing mindfulness. So in this sutta, Buddha say, he talk about a heap of the unwholesome. Here the unwholesome, my friends, stands for the negative mental states. Let's go and explore furthermore. So our Blessed One said this, bhikkhus, which means monks, if one were to say of anything, a heap of the unwholesome, which means a group, the heap, we usually use this heap for heap of grains, heap of sand. So same way, Buddha say there is a heap of unwholesome, which means a negative, unskillful things. If one were to say that there is a heap of the unwholesome in our mind, it is about the 5 hindrances that one could rightly say this. For this is a complete heap of the unwholesome. That is the 5 hindrances. Here the Buddha say a complete heap of the unwholesome to these 5 hindrances in respect to the unskillful side. Now, my friends, hindrances are the obstacles for the mindfulness. You might have heard this term before while you are listening to the teachings on meditation. So usually the teachers explain the hindrances as the enemies to the mindfulness, which means where there is hindrances, there is no mindfulness. So these are the obstacles which prevent us from developing and training our mind. So these are obstacles, these are blocks to the mindfulness. What 5? Now the Buddha explained these 5 in detail. Buddha say, the hindrance of the sensual desire. The first is the hindrance of sensual desire. Second, the hindrance of ill will. The hindrance of sloth and torpor is the third. Fourth, the hindrance of restlessness and remorse. Five, the hindrance of doubt. So in a previous session, we also study studied about these five hindrances as a bowl of water that is mixed with different things, which blocks the reflection. When we were to see our reflection through the bowl, we can't see our reflection because it's being um, closed with some of the things which like blocked. For an example, it said that hindrance of sensual desire is like a painted water ball, like paint, the color is painted. So one were to see their reflection, they do not see it clearly. And the hindrance of ill will was like a boiling water. So we can't examine our face through that such a boiling water. And again, the hindrance of sloth and torpor was like uh, the ball of water which is covered with aquatic plants. And the hindrance of restlessness and remorse was like a rippling water. And the doubt was like a water ball which is kept in dark so that we don't see our reflection. So the same way Buddha say these are the mental states that hinders our mindfulness. Whenever there is these five hindrances, or maybe it can be all of these hindrances, or it can be one of them, can distract our mindfulness. So we won't be able to see our mind clearly because these are so much powerful and keep preventing our progress in our spiritual life and in our meditative attainments and also with our mindful practices. So these are just like enemies that we have to fight with while we are doing our meditations. So this is quite important topic in mindful training in Buddhism. So let's go further. First hindrance is sensual desire. We call it in Buddhist language kama chanda, craving for pleasurable sensory experiences, which distracts the mind and disrupt the meditation. So craving for pleasurable sensory experiences is a ongoing mental state that we always have in our mind. So when it increases, which means when the craving or the desire for the stimulation of the senses increases, it can cloud the mind and it block our mindfulness. We won't be able to see our mind clearly. So it distracts the mind and disrupts the meditation. Okay? Craving for pleasurable sensory experiences. Uh, yes, if we go a little bit further, the craving for pleasurable sensory experiences can classify into seeing the sights through the eye, hearing sounds, smells, tastes, touch. So when it comes to agreeable objects, so our mind entertain and try to be with those sensory experience in order to make the mind so much excited. So when we are going to be mindful or whatever we are doing in our maybe in our day-to-day life, so we see that our mind always yearning for that stimulation of the senses. So this is blocking our mindfulness. So we need to understand this mental state. Hindrance of ill will, vyapada, feelings of anger, hatred, or resentment that create mental agitation and prevent inner peace. So when we don't receive our desired uh, excitement from the object of the senses, so we recoil with that. We bring anger and we create aversion towards that experience. Let's say as long as we see a beautiful sight, so we will feel so happy. But when it change, we become repel with that sight. So it generates ill will, which keeps on working in our mind as a thought process. So it manifests into a strong anger, hatred, and even for the resentment. So that is a hindrance. That is a uh, something which obstacle the mindfulness. It prevents developing the mind. The hindrance of sloth and torpor, thina midda, which means the mental sluggishness, drowsiness or lack of energy that hinders alertness and concentration. So we also have the mental sluggishness, which means our mind will so much contracted. It doesn't want to uh, do any task. There are times which we see that mind is so much sluggish, which means it doesn't find any entertainment by doing anything. Like it just wanted to be sluggish, contracted, which means, let's say for an example, that when our mind is occupied with the sluggishness, we can't lift our mind and put in it into a particular object of meditation or whatever. Let's say we want to read a book, so we can't lift our mind and put into that task. Our mind hides and it will be contracted if we want to do any particular task. So mind doesn't find any enjoyment by doing that. It is kind of a sluggishness, thinner. And as a result, it creates midday. So these two are combined together and seeing it as a specific mental state. Even so, that mental sluggishness is what creates the drowsiness. So we feel drowsy. We feel so much lack of energy into the body. So we don't feel we are so much positive or energetic by doing something. So that brings drowsiness. So this is something people most of the time engage with when they are going to focus their mindfulness to a meditation. So they usually feel this mental sluggishness and drowsiness, thinamid, or another translation is sloth and torpor. So, we have some lack of terms in English to the exact meaning in the Buddhist language. So different translations have different renderings to this term, but I usually use the all most of the common translations. And also here I have put many translations, sloth and torpor, mental sluggishness and drowsiness. So yes. So we need to understand these mental states before we try to remove them. So here the Buddha say, all of these are heap of unwholesome, which means these are the specific things which create suffering, which blocks mindfulness, and which distract the mind. We don't see our mind is calm is because our mind is possessed with these unskillful mental states. Next, the hindrance of restlessness and remorse. Uddacha kukkucha, agitation, anxiety, and or unease that disrupts mental stability and focus. This is also a hindrance which is really powerful that we see during our meditations. Our mind becomes so restless and it becomes remorse. Uh, Remorse means not in a way like if somebody committed a kind of a really bad act, but this is kind of a remorse means like feeling so much regret about things that they spoken, things that they done, or maybe like when we are going to be mindful or we are going to read a book or we are going to do do the dishes or sweeping, no matter whatever we are doing. Sometimes there are some mental states which brings us uh, regret about the things. Like, why did I do that? Why, what I'm doing this? Or maybe like, why did I say that to that person? I shouldn't have said this. So that's a regret, that's remorse. And that can bring restlessness. In that moment, our mind is not at peace. It brings restless. The more that we regret about something, the more the restlessness becomes powerful. So these two are combined together by the Supreme Buddha and taught us that it is a hindrance. It prevents the mindfulness. The hindrance of doubt, vicikiccha, uncertainty or lack of faith regarding the teachings or one's practice, which obstructs commitment and progress. So usually when the mind occupies with the doubt, when our mind is full of doubt, so we don't find any inspiration in our meditation. We will not be uh, we will not be doing our meditation practice. We will think that, is this the correct way? Is this method correct? Is this the technique that I'm following, is it correct? Is this teacher teaching me correctly? So there will be such doubts. So this can block our mindfulness. Even in our regular life, let's say, even when we are doing something, we might have doubt about this, like things that we do. Like we don't have space, like straight idea about the things that we are doing. So it's a doubt. So actually, Buddha gives us, it's the best way to abandon doubt is to study the Buddha's teachings, because it talks about meditation up until to the goal. It does not stop anywhere, but it takes us to the goal, even to a slight thing we are doing our day-to-day life. Buddha has spoken about that too. Like Buddha taught that how we should live our family life, how we should live our uh, like our spiritual life, and how we should uh, relate our life into our economic life and to our social life. So everything Buddha has taught, and all together they are directed to a one goal, that is the overcoming all suffering in this very life. So the easiest method is to abandon the doubt, is to study the Buddhist teachings. So then we will not be doubtful, because sometimes people have perplexity about their own life and about the life of the other people that they live with. And sometimes the people have some doubt about the next life and about this life and about mental training, let's say about meditations. But everything Buddha has taught us, so then we can firmly establish our faith on that and start to study. Even as a monk, so we uh, share the Buddha's exact teachings. So then you have some time to consider about these teachings and start to apply these teachings. It's still, though that I'm sharing you the teachings, but the real owner of these teachings is the Buddha. So we establish faith on the Buddha and we start to meditate. Now, while we are meditating on breathing, there's nothing to doubt with that, because there's a very simple technique. All we need is to keep on following that training. It depends on our potential. So the more that we put our mental effort, so we can balance and we can still our mind. So that is the hindrance of doubt. If monks, one word to say of anything, a heap of the unwholesome, it is about these five hindrances that one could rightly say this. He say, whatever mental illness, whatever mental disorder, whatever distraction we have, depression we have, they all arise not because of wholesome things, but because of unwholesome side. And Buddha explained it in five specific things, five hindrances. Now, there is another sutta teaching. Buddha speaks about these hindrances as a corruption for the gold, which means it's a simile. First, before he explained about these five hindrances, he say, monks, there are these five corruptions of gold, corrupted by which gold is neither malleable, nor wieldy, nor radiant, but brittle and not properly fit for work. Now here the Buddha say, when a person go to find gold, so they don't find the gold in the first place. They will find some corruptions together corrupted this gold. And when they collect the gold, and when they collect it, and when they are going to make a something kind of a jewelry or an ornament, they can't successfully do that because of the corruptions. So the Buddha say it's neither malleable, nor wieldy, nor radiant, but brittle and not properly fit for work. So cannot do any work out of this gold. Usually when people go to the gold mine, so gold mine, they collect this pile of soil that they think that there can be some gold in it. So then they put it into a bucket or kind of a pan, and then put some water and keep shaking and keep washing that, so that they can remove all the excessive things from the gold. And then they keep the gold inside, and they remove the excessive soil, metal, and all the other dust and sand out from the gold. So then they collect it and they put into they boil it, and then they melt it, and then they create these ornaments. So as long as it is corrupted with these metal and these corruptions, it is not wieldy, it's not malleable, it's not radiant, it's not brittle, and not fit for proper work. Now, what are they? Here, the Buddha say, monks, iron is a corruption of gold, corrupted by which the gold is neither malleable, nor wieldy, nor radiant, but brittle and not properly fit for work. Copper is a corruption of gold. Tin is a corruption of gold. Lead and silver. Okay, my friends, if you were to find a gold, a piece of soil that you think that there can be gold, so you can do this process. You can understand, or there can be iron, there can be copper, there can be tin, a lead or silver, which is not gold. So that corrupt the gold. So you need to remove them in order to find the pure gold to put into some work. Okay. Now one should gradually remove corruptions from gold to find pure gold to make it a beautiful ornament. So too, monks, there are these five corruptions of the mind, corrupted by which the mind is neither malleable, nor wieldy, nor radiant, but brittle and not rightly concentrated for the destruction of the taints. Now the Buddha says, same way that the gold is being corrupted by the metal, the mind has a corruption. When the mind is corrupted by five corruptions, the mind is not malleable, not wieldy, not radiant, but brittle and not rightly concentrated. No matter how much that we put our effort, we try to expect our mind will be still and we will gain mindfulness, we won't be able to successfully achieve that as long as the mind is possessed with these five corruptions. So the mind will not be rightly concentrated. It might be concentrated to the sense desire, concentrated to the ill will, concentrated to the sleepiness, or concentrated to the restlessness, or regret, or to the doubt, but it won't be concentrated to our meditation object, such as our breathing. So there should be a correct concentration, such as breathe concentration on breathing to remove the all the taints. Taints means the things like the defilements, which keeps us preventing us from liberation. Now here Buddha say, it is same as the gold, the mind, which is bright, is just like the gold. What fire? Sensual desire is a corruption of the mind, corrupted by which the mind is neither malleable nor wieldy, nor radiant, but brittle and not rightly concentrated for the destruction of the things. Now, you might be wondering why these teachings have like repetition so much. It is because, my friends, these teachings came from the Buddha's time. While the Buddha was alive, they didn't write their teachings on papers. Even though they had papers, they don't write it out of respect. They remembered it and they memorized the teachings and came it as a recitation for 2,600 years. So for today, um, it was coming as a recitation, but nowadays we see like it is in internet and in books. But most of the time, in the history, they protected this by recitation. So from one generation to the another. So there is some repetitions that we can mostly find. It can be a way of that they are learning, and it also help us to remember most of the time. So the sense desire is a corruption of the mind. Ill will is a corruption of the mind. Sloth and torpor are a corruption of the mind. Restlessness, remorse are corruption of the mind. Doubt is a corruption of the mind. Now, friends, we learned these things so far, and we also learned that just as we need the correct, like the shining gold to make a ornament, same way we need a mind without these corruptions. So that's the mind which we can put into the higher attainments, even for developing mindfulness. So we learn that our mindfulness will be blocked as long as we have these specific mental states. Now Buddha talk about removing hindrances. Now, there is a special teaching where Buddha teach about the fruits of the spiritual life. There, Buddha explained it to a king. So I extracted that some of the parts from that sutta. Here we will not study about abandoning hindrance uh, like in more detail, but I want to share this together with the mindfulness training. Well, we will study furthermore about these topics in the future sessions also. Now, the Buddha say, in the same way, great king, when a monk sees that these five hindrances are unabandoned within himself, he regards that as a debt, as a sickness, as a confinement in prison, as slavery, as a desert road. Now he say, no matter while we are meditating or whatever we are doing, like no matter we are working and we are doing the dishes or reading a book or riding a bike, no matter whatever the things we are doing, but whenever we examine our mind, if we were to see our five hindrances, we should approach them that as a debt. when it is not abandoned. It has a sickness. It has a confinement in prison, as a slavery, as a desert road. Why? For sure, it brings enjoyment, but in a long run, we will reduce our mindfulness. So we need such an approach towards our mind when we have these hindrances, because we are preparing ourselves into a fight against these hindrances, because we are seeking for a higher knowledge and higher attainment. So we need to neutralize these mental states. For sure, sense desire has a enjoyment, ill will has a enjoyment, and when we have sloth and torpor, and when we have regret, restlessness, and when we have doubt, they have kind of enjoyment. But yes, it is for us to take the responsibility of to neutralize these things. Now the Buddha say, sense desire is like a debt. When we are having a debt, our mind always work with that. Oh, I bought this from that person, so one day I have to give it back. No matter whatever we are possessing as a debt, we have a ongoing thought that this is belong to another. So as the sense desire, when our mind is working on a beautiful sight, or song we listened, a food that we ate, or touch that we had, it's work in our mind, and it asks for more, like as a desire. So it's like a debt. So mind yearns for that sensory pleasure always, up until we achieve that, up until that we bring that into our senses. So in that sense, it's like a debt. And ill will as a sickness. And the sloth and torpor is like we are in a prison. So there's no way out. Restlessness and remorse as a slavery. So this really makes sense. Sometimes when we have some regret, so we are following that regret as a slave. And the doubt as a desert road is quite easy to understand. Desert road and the doubt. Now the Buddha say how they see, how they abandon, how enlightened Bhante is before enlightenment, they abandon these mental states. Great king, suppose a man were to take a loan and apply it to his business, and his business were to succeed, so that he could pay back his old debts and would have enough money left over to maintain a wife. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Let's say we had a debt, but we take a loan and we applied it, and we have excessive money, so we can provide it for our family, and we can also pay back that debt. They feel such a happiness when they abandon sense desire, when their mind is not functioning with pleasure of the senses, they feel such a happiness. And that naturally brings them glad to the mind, and they experience so much joy. Again, great king, suppose a man were to become sick, afflicted, gravely ill, so that he could not enjoy his food, and his strength would decline. But after some time, he would recover from that illness and would enjoy his food and regain his bodily strength. He would reflect on this. And as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. When we overcame his sickness, like sickness of ill will, so they feel so much happy and they will feel so much glad. It is not the excitement that we feel to our senses, but it is more like a inner peace that is kindling like a fire, which brings soothing feeling inside, when you realize that, oh, I don't have ill will anymore. Again, great king, suppose a man were to locked up in a prison. After some time, he would be released from prison, and with released from prison, safe and secure, with no loss of his possessions. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. It is like a person which set free from a prison when they abandon their sloth and torpor. Again, great king, suppose a man were a slave without independence, subservient to others, unable to go where he wants. After some time, he would be released from slavery and gain his independence. It's really beautiful, like when a person abandon that restlessness, regret, they will feel like they are so independent. He would no longer be subservient to others, but a free man, able to go wherever he wants. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. Again, great king, suppose a man with wealth, possessions, were traveling along a desert where food was scarce and dangers were many. After some time, he would cross over the desert and arrive safely at a village which is safe and free, free from danger. He would reflect on this, and as a result, he would become glad and experience joy. When you came out from a doubt, you feel like you came into a so much peaceful and safety village. So that naturally brings gladness and joy. When we abandon these hindrances, each of them have a gladness and a joy along with it. But we find it so exciting when there is these mental states, but we can achieve much more happiness if we remove them from the mind. When he sees that these five hindrances have been abandoned within himself, he regards that as a freedom from debt, as a good health, as release from prison, as freedom from slavery, as place of safety. When he sees that these five hindrances have been abandoned within himself, gladness arises. When he is gladdened, rapture arises. When his mind is filled with rapture, his body becomes so much tranquil, which means body will be so relaxed. So why we don't have relax in our body is because our mind is possessed by hindrances. When body feels so much relaxed, he experiences happiness. Being happy, his mind becomes concentrated. So there should be a happiness, a inner happiness to experience stillness or concentration. It's always a sequence of events which keeps happening. We need to provide its unique conditions to develop it up until to a concentration. In that sense, there is no self in this path. That's why it is said that we need to possess all the conditions to bring concentration to the mind. So it's a succession of a specific conditions which brings us stillness. Now Buddha say, not only there are complete unwholesome things, but there are also complete wholesome things. To remove hindrance, we need to develop mindfulness. Now it's said that whenever you have focus, whenever you have mindfulness, you are attacking the five hindrances. You are fighting with five hindrances. The moment that you think, oh, I should start to develop my mindfulness, you are attacking to the hindrances. You are neutralizing the hindrances. We can't find a solution for the hindrances by running here and there. You already have enough teachings. Start from developing mindfulness little by little. So this is a side point that I put by myself. So yeah, there's a very beautiful uh, guidance that my most venerable teacher gave me, gave all of our Bantes. My great teacher gave us an advice. Bante said, if you are into a race in your spiritual path, take the side of the tortoise. Have you heard about this run, the marathon of the tortoise and the rabbit? So he said you should take the side of the tortoise, not the side of the rabbit, because rabbit overestimated his potential and slept when he woke up. It was too late. And rabbit was careless too. He needed instant results. Tortoise, little by little, gradually followed the path slowly and finished the race. Tortoise was so much mindful. So he said, uh, for us to be like a tortoise. So it takes time. It takes gradual practices. But we need to fix our goal that I will put all my energy, all my mental effort, my dedication to attain my stillness of my mind. But for that, I'll choose the side of the tortoise, not the side of the rabbit. Not to being so much hurry, but gradual, little by little. So I found that's one of the best advices that I ever received from my teacher Bhante, because sometimes people, because of their rush, they they go for different techniques, and they end up with not having much attainment. So yes. Now the Buddha say, we were talking about the complete wholesome. He say, for this is a complete heap of wholesome, that is the four establishments of mindfulness. So in later sessions, we started to study the four establishments of mindfulness. So we explored a little bit further in our previous sessions, and we will also do it in our future sessions. So for this point, please remember that the complete wholesome is the four establishments of mindfulness. Whenever you start to establish your mindfulness in your body, your feelings, and in your mind and in your mental objects, you are trying to find your ground of mindfulness. You are breaking the process of manifestation of the hindrances, because hindrances arise always because of the constant thinking. It is connected with the thinking process. Now, when you break that chain and you refocus it to your body, for an example, to your breathing, it will reduce the power and it will start to remain with the breathing. So for that, we need our constant effort. So the four mindfulness are body in body, feelings in feelings, mind in mind, phenomena in phenomena. So these are the four grounds that we seek for the mindfulness. Buddha say a heap of the wholesome. He said these four are heap of the wholesome because that develop your higher knowledge. You can achieve great success with that. But being with the hindrances, not only we will attach to this life, we are living in human life, but it can also take us in the suffering, in the samsara. That's why he say hindrance. Not only because that it hinders our progress in this life, but it can also hinders our liberation. So it does not have a specific goal when mind is filled with hindrances. But when you start to establish your mindfulness to your body feelings, mind, and phenomena, it can take you to the final goal of liberation. It can even brings you nibbana. I'll finish the discussion with this part. Buddha say in Dhammapada, ye sancha susamaradha nichankaya gata sati akichantena sevanti kicche sata chakarinu satanang sampajananang atta gachanti asavam. This is one of the most favorite, my favorite verse in Dhammapada. Those that have properly constant mindfulness of the body don't do what should not be done, but always do what should be done. Mindful and aware, their defilements come to an end. What we should do constantly? Focusing your mindfulness, focusing our mindfulness towards our body. That's where we usually begin. They do not do what should not be done. They don't do they do what should be done, which means they don't have regret. They don't have debt. They are not slavery. They are not in a debt. They are not have a sickness. They are not in a prison. They always do what should be done and should not do what should not be done. So Buddha say, for that, focus your constant mindfulness to your body, such as your breathing. Whenever you are not doing breathing, you can focus your mindfulness to your postures in your body. So yes, we will study these teachings and we study these topics furthermore in our future sessions. So stay tuned with this discussion. So thank you so much, my friends, for joining with me for this discussion. May you be happy, may you be well, happy and peaceful. May we all be able to realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautama Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. Namo Buddhaya.